Hello and welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to focus on security groups, specifically security group definitions, conceptual overview of security groups, and inbound and outbound rules for security groups. So let's start off with a simplified definition of what a security group is. So security groups are very similar to network access control lists in that they allow and deny traffic. However, security groups are found on the instance level as opposed to the subnet level. In addition, the way allow and deny rules work are different from network access control lists. So again, just think about security groups as a firewall, as a level of security, but as we're in network access control lists, we're security on the subnet level, security groups are security on the instance level. As for the AWS definition, a security group acts as a virtual firewall that controls the traffic for one or more instances. When you launch an instance, you associate one or more security groups with the instance. You add rules to each security group that allow traffic to or from its associated instances. When you modify rules for security group at any time, the new rules are automatically applied to all instances that are associated with the security group. When we decide whether to allow traffic to reach an instance, we evaluate all the rules from all the security groups that are associated with the instance. So what I want you to take away from that last part there is that if you remember with network access control lists, as they were evaluating the rules from lowest to highest, the second it found a rule that applied, it executed that rule and all the remaining rules were discarded. In the case of security groups, it will always evaluate all of the rules for all of the security groups that are associated with an instance and then decide what to do. So taking a look at our VPC diagram, I want now to insert where security groups lie. So as information comes into the VPC or out to the intranet, if the data is headed towards an instance, whether that is actually an EC2 or an RDS instance, it is going to have to go through a security group. So as data comes into the VPC and flows down through a network access control list into a subnet, before then it gets to the actual EC2 instance, it is going to have to go through a security group. So this is where it lies in the VPC in terms of data flow in and out. In the same manner, when information is leaving an EC2 instance, the first thing it has to pass through is the security group, which can deny information again from leaving the EC2 instance. So between network access control lists and security groups, you have two layers of security between your instances and the outside world. So now let's talk about inbound and outbound rules. So when you create a new security group, all inbound traffic is denied and all outbound traffic is allowed by default. So let's take a look at security groups over here in the EC2 console. So here under Network and Security, click on Security Groups. Now, when you create an AWS account, there is a default security group that is provisioned as part of your VPC. And by default, the default security group comes with inbound and outbound rules allowed for all traffic types. So if I were to create a new security group, we see right away that there are no inbound rules. But there is an outbound rule that allows all traffic out across all protocols and all port ranges. But for inbound, there is nothing by default. So at this point, and we'll move to the next slide here, it is important to understand that all traffic is denied unless there is an explicit allow rule, and there are no deny rules, only allow rules. So everything is denied unless I allow it. And there's no way to explicitly deny something. I can only explicitly allow something. So when I add a rule, let's say an SSH rule, now SSH traffic would be allowed inbound for this particular security group if I were to apply the security group to an EC2 instance. For outbound, everything is allowed, but I can go through and restrict that. I can just change this to SSH, and now inbound only SSH traffic will be allowed, and outbound only SSH traffic would be allowed. So taking a look at this diagram here, If we have in our VPC two instances and two different subnets, and they have two different security groups, one that allows HTTP and that one doesn't, then as traffic would come in from the internet, somebody is requesting information that we have hosted on our EC2 servers. If that is HTTP traffic and it comes in and is directed this way, it would reach the EC2 instance. But if it were to come in this way, it would not reach the EC2 instance. So it is very important when dealing with security groups as well as network access control lists that you're very aware of what type of traffic is allowed, because again, this could become a troubleshooting area when you start to talk about connectivity issues or restriction issues with data flowing in and out of your EC2 instances. So again, to quickly recap, security groups are very similar to network access control lists in that they allow and deny traffic. And I always want you to think about both network access control lists and security groups as your virtual firewalls, as levels of security. And you allow or deny specific types of traffic in or out of your subnets and in and out of your AWS resources that you provision inside your VPC. And best practice is always to allow only traffic that is required. So if you have EC2 instances that are just hosting web traffic, then you should only allow HTTP traffic in and out. There's no reason to allow other types of traffic in and out because that could just open up security holes in your system. So with that, we will complete this lesson. Thank you for watching. You may now move on.